wanted to share something with you today, very different from last week. And that would be friendship on the path of awakening. And I just would like to point out here now that you are actually on the path of awakening. We are, those of us here. People come to meditation and mindfulness for all kinds of reasons. And the one thing that we have in common is that we want to reduce suffering. It usually starts with we want to reduce our own suffering. Like, yeah, I'm a little stressed out. I want to settle down. Or that's the very one end of the spectrum, and it really goes in all directions from there. I think if any of us were offered a menu and there was an option to end all of our suffering, I'm pretty sure we would click on that option. And that is what the Buddha taught. He taught this path that we walk, this meditation, this mindfulness. It really, that is the end objective. That is what we're working for, after all. So by dint of the fact that we're here practicing meditation and mindfulness together, you are in fact on the path of awakening. So just wanted to let you know. And Buddha also taught that there are things that you can do on your way in this physical manifestation that we're experiencing right now. There's things that we can do to make the conditions more favorable for said awakening. There are things we can actively do here and now in this present moment that assist us, that make those conditions supportive to the end of our suffering. And as you can imagine, he has some really wonderful lists of the various things that we can do. And rather than read off those lists, I want to reflect on the first of his list of the 4 factors of stream entry, which is this idea of friends. The Buddha spoke of friends. I find that so sweet and so surprising. But in fact, it's a very, very important part of his teaching. So I'm going to read for you a small paragraph from a teacher named Gil Franzal. Maybe you've heard of Gil. He teaches out of California. Anyway, he wrote a piece on the role of friendship on the path, and the first paragraph is very helpful. He writes, it can be easy to think Buddhist practice is individualistic and solitary. Teachings on being mindful of oneself and taking responsibility for one's actions can seem to emphasize a focus on oneself. The practice of sitting in meditation with one's eyes closed can also suggest that Buddhism is about separating oneself from society. While certainly an important part of the practice is personal and inwardly focused, this is only a part of what Buddhist practice is about. A much more significant part of the practice is interpersonal. It concerns the rich world of our relationships with others. In fact, the interpersonal teachings and practices of Buddhism create the context and the foundation for the interpersonal practices such as meditation. And so I wanted to read some, so that was what Gil points out to us. And so I looked a little further and just wanted to share with you something very that you hear quite often about Buddha's opinion on how important friends are in our path of awakening, in our walk towards the elimination of our suffering, the reduction and eventually elimination. So I'll just read you a short excerpt from one of the suttas, and it's from the Upada Sutta 45.2, in case you wanted to look it up, where the he had a cousin, his name was Ananda. He was also his attendant, I think, for maybe 20 or 30 years. Towards the end of his life especially, he was there with him. And he comes to the Buddha to ask this question. And this is the quotation. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Shakyans, where there was a town of the Shakyans named Nagakara. And the Venerable Ananda approached the Buddha. Having approached, he paid homage, sat down on one side, and said to him, Venerable Sir, this friendship, this is half of the holy life. That is good friendship, good comradeship, good companionship. And Buddha replies, Not so, Ananda, not so. This is the entire holy life, Ananda. That is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. When a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it's expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. So interesting. Not what I think we usually think of when we are reflecting on our meditation practice, on our mindfulness practice, because it's such an intimate and private thing that we do. And yet it does, in fact, inform our relationships with others. So there's another sutta that I want to share with you in a minute about his advice or his guidance or his opinion on friends, on what constitutes a good friend. But before we do that, I wanted to just reflect a little bit on what friend means. Because in my view, there's a whole spectrum of the types of friends that people have. And my invitation to you is to expand your thinking of what a friend is, to allow for more possibilities where you might not necessarily be inclined to look first. Not everyone you run into is a friend, but it's easy to miss some friends that we already have or that may want to be cultivated. A definition from the American Heritage of Dictionary, one of my favorite places to start looking when investigating. A friend is a noun, a person whom one knows, likes, and trusts, a person whom one knows, an acquaintance, a person with whom one is allied in a struggle or a cause, a comrade. So that's a friend according to the English language. So what came to my mind as I was thinking about examples of friends that we have, spiritual friends, obviously, are the ones probably at the top of mind of Buddha. But then there's the sort of this category of the classic friends. And, a romantic partner is probably at the top of that list. Your quote-unquote best friend, a childhood friend. then your sibling, your child, your parent, your cousin. And then a next level, your therapist, your mentor, your colleague, your volunteer partner, your neighbor, your doctor. And then your PT person, your masseuse, the shopkeeper, your doorman, your dog walker, your housekeeper. Then you can even move down into the four-legged realm. Your cat, your dog. These beings who populate your life, they are threads in the fabric of your life. And it's important to know that each thread is integral to the fabric. And it's important not to exclude beings who propel us on our good path, on our good walk that we're walking. Just to mention, in this class, you have Dharma friends. When we go into breakouts, you are actively supporting someone with mindful listening and your mindful speech. I remember my husband and my children and I spent 1 year living in Bordeaux, France in 2014, 2015. And we were a little bereft of friends, but we started to make do, and we noticed that culturally they make friends with their shopkeepers. It's a thing, and it's a really important thing. And they don't exchange names for a really long time, a couple of years. So you can be good friends with someone and share things on your heart with someone in a quick conversation with someone whose name you don't even know. And that helped me expand my understanding of what friends are. I remember calling my son friend for the first time, meaning a shift inside of my head. I had always been a parent, which has certain responsibilities, not all of which are comfortable or pleasant. And I think we were walking. I think he invited me. Yeah, he invited me to go rock climbing with him. And we went up to I don't like to rock climb, but I said I would go. I've never rock climbed, actually. But he's my son, so, okay, I'll go. And we walked up to the counter where you pay, because, of course, Mom is there, so Mom's going to pay. But he had really wanted me to share it with him. And in the year or two before, I'd been noticing that he wanted more responsibility. He wanted to be kind of not mothered quite as heavily. So that was underneath the level, and we walked into this place where there's these strangers, and I walked up leading as a mother, like I always do, leading with the wallet too. And I remember saying to the girl behind the desk, "Oh, my friend and I here would like to go climbing today." It was something that came out and really changed my thought process on this other human being in my life. And it allowed me to let go of some things that really needed to be let go of by then, and allowed me to enjoy that person in a kind of new way that's kind of unfolding even now. So these friends in our lives, often they come in surprising places we're not expecting. So again, the invitation is to keep an open space in your heart. So, getting back to Buddha, he said these good friends are essential. Okay, Buddha, what is a good friend? What is a good friend? And of course, he has a list for us, which I will share with you now. And this is known as the Mitta Sutta, M-I-T-T-A, the Mitta Sutta. It's not listed here, but so I've put it on the screen, but I'll read it as well. This is from the Numbered Discourses. A friend. Buddha writes, Mendicants, you should associate with a friend who has 7 factors. What 7? They give what is hard to give. They do what is hard to do. They endure what is hard to endure. They reveal their secrets to you. They keep your secrets. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. They don't look down on you in times of loss. You should associate with a friend who has these 7 factors. And then it's put into the stanzas. A friend gives what is hard to give and does what's hard to do. They put up with your harsh words and with things hard to endure. They tell you their secrets and keep your secrets for you. They don't abandon you in times of trouble or look down on you in times of loss. The person in whom these things are found is your friend. If you want to have a friend, you should keep company with such a person. Beautiful piece. It gives a very helpful understanding on what to look for in the people who cross your path. And I, just in the interest of never becoming attached, as that's what we strive for in our practice, these were his aspirations. This is what you should aspire for, knowing full well that it's a tall order, but that's helpful. We need tall orders so that we can reach. And we forgive along the way. And I think the most poignant thing for me in reading this, and I don't know, maybe you had a different reaction, was that it looked also very much like a guide on how to be a good friend. How to be a good friend. And it really asked me to kind of reflect on how I operate as a friend, or how I show up as a friend. Because I would argue that I'm a pretty good friend, right? I know how to show up, and yet reading that, there's definitely things that are very helpful to be reminded of as we show up for people in our lives in different ways. And some of the thoughts that came to mind, giving what's hard to give, doing what's hard to do. Again, it's a spectrum. But just inviting you to reflect on those times when you feel it's hard to give. You know, those times when you feel your heart contract a little, and to investigate, like, what's going on here? And an example would be, I bought something for somebody, kind of a newish friend, somebody I don't know super well. And it was sitting on the table, and then they went ahead and kind of were, not responding and not paying attention and kind of forgotten about me. And then that thing is there, and I could feel my heart contract a little, like, wait a minute. I still haven't given it to you because I haven't had time. Oh, wait a minute, me too. I was feeling, well, what kind of a friend are you going to be? And then recognizing that contraction of the heart is very human and can guide me in allowing me to let go a little bit and understand that everybody's got their trials and tribulations. It's not all about us all the time. These little moments when we feel things are hard are really an invitation to expand. You really can expand your view and maybe contemplate, well, what else is going on here? Can I get past my own worries, my own discomforts, and connect anyway? The part where Buddha mentions, can a good friend will tell you their secrets, really brought up contemplation on right speech. When someone shares something, maybe it's not even a secret, but it's something like they're being vulnerable and they share something, or they share something that's not really admirable, easily criticized, something they've done or said, and it's something that's easily criticized, but they said it to you, or you learned it. It's kind of an intimate thing now. You have this information on this person that's unflattering. And what do you do with that information? Like, is it easy to go and then when you move to the next person to sort of bring this up in a critical manner and say, oh, well, they did this and they, said that, and can you believe that? Or maybe it's done in a kind of a mocking way, like, oh. And it's easy to do that. It's very easy to do that. It's very normal. And yet, if you follow the golden rule of right speech, right speech is when you're with someone, is it true and is it helpful? When you're speaking to someone, that's the golden rule of right speech. As you're speaking to someone, is what I'm about to say true, and is it helpful? Like, we don't need to be truth sayers if we are hurting someone. But then when the person is not there, what we are saying, what's coming out of our mouth, can we continue to say that as if the person was right next to us? Would they be okay if what we were saying was said? Would they be okay with the way we're saying what we're saying? Like, an example would be, the neighbor said, oh, not the neighbor, say your friend told you that they had, forgotten to pay their bill and their electricity was turned off. I don't know, I'm just pulling this out of my ear. And so, at the time you're like, oh my goodness, you forgot to pay your bill and your electricity was turned off, or you weren't able to pay your bills and your electricity was turned off. When you move then to share that story with the next person, in what way do you share that information? Oh my God, you can't believe it. She didn't pay her electricity bill and they turned it off. I mean, like, well, can you honestly, who would do that? Like, how hard is it to pay your electricity? Or do you share it in a way that would still hold them carefully as if they were right next to you? Oh, yeah, that's really tough to have forgotten. I wonder if there's something going on that's, making them forgetful. And how terrible to have your electricity turned off. This happened to my friend. Can you believe this? Like, there's a different way. And you know what I mean. So again, good friends, being good friends. Good friends tell their secrets. And this one made me wonder, can we share our secrets? Our secrets often come out of a place of fear or shame, right? That's why we have secrets. Or we want to manipulate appearances, so we keep certain things secret. It's okay. Just an invitation, sharing these things that we prefer to hide can be a beautiful way to let people in, and a beautiful way to support one another, to help each other feel better. Usually when you share something like that, people are very interested, because believe me, they have their own secrets too, right? So it builds that comradeship. And then one other one, don't look down. Good friends don't look down on you in times of loss. That's similar to the other one. It's easy to criticize people. It's easy to say, well, if they hadn't done this, then that wouldn't have happened. And it's natural, and when that arises in your heart, good God, what were they thinking, right? Can you let that one let that wave crest, and then continue on to the compassionate thought process. And usually understanding that people do things because they do things that are unskillful. We do things that are unskillful because we don't yet have the tools, we don't yet have the clarity to do what we'd like to do. So, there but for the grace of God go I, reminds me. The Buddhists have this concept, or Buddha brought up this concept of the near enemy, which I thought I would mention. The near enemy in the Buddhist teachings is, well, I'll just read this to you now. I think this is again from Gil Franzel's talk. He writes, the near enemy of friendship. It's interesting that the near enemy of friendship is flattery. In Buddhism, a near enemy of an ideal is that which looks like the ideal but actually detracts from it. A flatterer can seem like a friend but actually is undermining the possibility of a real friendship. Honesty nourishes friendship. Undeserved praise does not. Interesting. I'll finish with just a reflection on how this sutta on a good friend can also apply to ourselves in a different way than how to be a good friend to others, but how to be a good friend to yourself. How can you interpret these ideals for yourself? Can you give yourself those things that are hard for you to give? Like, can you give yourself approval for your good deeds? Can you reflect on your good deeds and soak that in? Can you have gratitude for yourself, for the good things that you bring to this world? And can you forgive yourself? Can you be a good friend to yourself and forgive yourself?